Why do people underestimate silence? Maybe because they've never seen what it can do. The mess hall door swung open at 1700 hours sharp. The noise of forks and boots and casual chatter filled the air, until it didn't. The sound dipped, just slightly, like the room itself was holding its breath. She stepped in quietly. Jeans, gray hoodie, civilian shoes, no insignia, no name tag, just another face in the sea of support staff, or so it seemed. But there was something about the way she moved, steady, deliberate, like she'd been here before. Like she could draw a map of the base with her eyes closed. To most, she was invisible. To 6 recruits sitting near the corner table, she was a question that demanded an answer. Hernandez saw her first. His fork froze midair. "Yo," he muttered, elbowing the man beside him. "What's she doing here?" Martinez followed his line of sight. He smirked. "Wrong place, wrong time, I guess." The others, Thompson, Rodriguez, Kim, and Nakamura, looked up from their trays. Half amusement, half curiosity. The kind that never leads anywhere good. Maya Chin kept walking. Her pace was even, unbothered. The coffee station was 20 feet away, and she'd been craving caffeine since 1300. She spent all day running a surveillance training exercise in the hills outside Camp Pendleton. 4 hours of heat, dust, and rookies trying to outsmart her. She'd let them think they had. The coffee was terrible, but it was hot. She poured, filled the cup halfway, and stirred. Steam curled upward, blurring the faint reflection of her own face. She could hear laughter behind her now. She could also feel it, the weight of 6 sets of eyes measuring her, trying to make sense of someone who didn't fit the picture in their heads. She turned toward the exit. The straight path out would take her right past their table. She could have circled around, avoided the attention, but she didn't. "Hey," someone called out. Thompson, the biggest of them, shoulders like sandbags. He leaned back in his chair, boots planted wide, owning the floor. "You know this is a military facility, right?" Maya stopped, 3 feet between her and his chair. She didn't flinch, didn't break stride, just stopped. "I'm aware," she said. "Then maybe you should know civilians aren't supposed to be in this section during chow time," Thompson went on, smiling like a man doing her a favor. "There's a visitor center up by the main gate. Someone there can help you find your way." A few of them chuckled. It wasn't cruel yet, but it was getting there. Martinez stood next, joining him. They made a half circle, casual, like wolves pretending to be friendly dogs. "Yeah," Martinez said, gesturing toward the door. "This area's restricted to active personnel. Easy to get turned around on a base this size." He tilted his head, feigned politeness. "You ever been to a military base before?" Maya's gaze didn't move. Her voice stayed calm. "A few." It should have ended there, but people rarely stop when they think they have power. Hernandez joined in, completing the half-ring. "See, that's the thing. Contractors eat earlier, it's protocol, nothing personal." "Nothing personal," Kim echoed, smirking. Maya took a sip of her coffee. It burned her tongue slightly. She didn't react. Through the windows, the sun was dropping over the Pacific, turning the sky into ribbons of gold and violet. Beautiful evening. Shame to waste it. She could have walked away, but some lessons, she knew, only landed if you let people walk into them. Thompson stood. The scrape of his chair against the floor was sharp, too sharp. Every conversation in the room faltered. "You're not going anywhere until we sort this out," he said. His hand hovered near his belt. Phone clipped there, ready to call the duty officer. Maya's eyes tracked every movement, every angle. 6 bodies forming a loose semicircle. Paths to the exit blocked. Bystanders watching from a distance. No one intervening. It wasn't fear that ran through her. It was calculation, observation, the mental click of training taking over. She set her coffee down gently on the table beside her. "Here, what's going to happen?" she said softly. "I'm going to finish my coffee. Then I'm going to walk out that door. and you six are going to think very carefully about the assumptions you made in the last 60 seconds." The words hung there, too quiet, too calm. Martinez laughed, forced. "Is that right? And what if we don't let you?" Maya's eyes lifted to his. "Then you'll learn faster." The mess hall went silent. Forks stopped mid-air. The air thickened. Somewhere near the serving line, a staff sergeant paused mid-step, phone half out of his pocket. "You threatening us?" Martinez said, voice tight now. "No," Maya replied. "I'm educating you." That word, educating, hit harder than anything else. The kind of confidence that didn't need volume. Kim scoffed. "Lady, you need to calm down. We're trying to handle this professionally, but you're making it really difficult." "Professional," Maya echoed. "Tell me, have they covered rules of engagement yet? De-escalation, positive identification?" Thompson's neck flushed red. "We're not engaging anyone. We're telling you to leave a restricted area." "Are you?" she asked. Her tone didn't change. It didn't need to. "Because from where I'm standing, 6 armed personnel have surrounded a single unarmed woman in a public mess hall. You've blocked exits. You've issued verbal threats. And you've done all of this based on what exactly? That I'm not wearing a uniform." Silence. Hernandez tried to laugh it off. "We're not armed. This isn't a combat zone." Maya tilted her head. "Really? None of you carry knives, multi-tools, anything clipped to your belts? You're infantry trainees and you're completely unarmed." No one answered. They didn't have to. Every one of them knew the truth. Her voice softened. "The thing about facts," she said, "is they depend on what information you're working with. And right now, you're working with incomplete data." It was the last sentence before the world shifted. The door to the mess hall opened again. Boots hit tile, heavy, rhythmic, practiced. 2 MPs, a Marine duty officer, and one man in a Navy uniform, gold trident gleaming on his chest. Commander James Reeves. Every head turned, every recruit froze. "Petty Officer Chun," Reeves said, "report." Maya straightened, not sharply but with quiet precision. Her posture changed in a single heartbeat. Civilian no more. "Sir," she said, 6 advanced infantry trainees questioned my authorization to be in this section. I was explaining proper threat assessment when you arrived." You could have heard a pin drop. Reeves' eyes swept across the recruits. Cold, deliberate, professional. "Did you ask her to identify herself before taking action?" Thompson swallowed. "We asked her to leave, sir." "That wasn't my question." "No, sir," Thompson said quietly. Reeves went down the line, Martinez, Hernandez, Kim, Rodriguez, Nakamura, one by one. "Did you ask for identification?" Each shook their head. Reeves nodded slowly. "So you acted on assumption. You treated appearance as fact." He turned slightly. "Petty Officer Chun is a Navy SEAL, first class, 4 years on this base. Advanced reconnaissance and direct action operations. Clearance that exceeds yours, mine, and probably everyone else's in this building." The recruits looked like they'd been hit with a sandbag. "A SEAL." The realization rippled across the room. The civilians eating nearby stared. The laughter from minutes ago felt like something from another lifetime. Thompson's voice came out small. "Sir, we didn't know." "That's the problem," Reeves said. "You didn't ask." He let the silence stretch. You could feel it burn. Maya picked up her cup. The coffee was cold now. She took a sip anyway. "Sir, if I may," she said. "They were doing what they thought was right. Their intent wasn't wrong, just their process." Reeves looked at her. "You're being generous." "I'm being realistic," she said. "They don't know what they don't know yet. Training, about mistakes. Better they make one here than in Kandahar." Thompson looked at her then. Really looked. Not at her clothes or her face, but her presence. The stillness that didn't need to prove anything. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said quietly. "Apology noted," Maya replied. "But this wasn't about respect. It was about assumption. And in the field, assumptions get people killed." The MPs shifted slightly. The message was clear. The lesson was over. Walsh, the duty officer, barked an order. "Recruits out my office now." The 6 of them filed out, eyes low, faces red. Nakamura hesitated, opened his mouth as if to speak, but thought better of it. The door closed behind them with a hollow thud. Reeves exhaled. "That was restrained of you," he said. "They're kids," Maya replied softly. 3 months out of basic, they'll learn." Most people would have ended that in 10 seconds. "I could have," she said, "but they wouldn't have learned anything." Reeves gave a faint smile. "You always did prefer teaching the hard way." Maya's eyes met his. "It's the only way that sticks." The mess hall returned to life slowly. Conversations restarted, whispers spreading like ripples through water. The story would travel faster than orders ever could. Outside, the sky was on fire with sunset, the kind that only happened near the ocean, where every color bled into gold. Maya walked out with the same quiet step she'd walked in with. But the silence that followed her wasn't ignorance anymore. It was respect. And somewhere deep in the echo of boots and murmurs and fading sunlight, a quiet truth settled in. Sometimes strength doesn't shout. It simply stands its ground. How do you come down from a moment like that? You don't. You just carry it with you, quietly, like the weight of a metal no one can see. Maya walked across the base as twilight fell, the cool Pacific air cutting through the day's heat. Helicopters idled somewhere beyond the hangars, the low thump of their rotors echoing like a heartbeat across the tarmac. She didn't think about the recruits anymore. Not with anger, at least. Their faces had already blurred into the long list of soldiers who would learn what assumption costs. She'd been one of them once, green, sure of herself, blind in ways that only time could correct. The coffee cup still hung in her hand, half empty. She tossed it into the bin outside the operations building and stopped. For a long second, she looked at the horizon, the edge where ocean met sky. That's where everything always began for her. The horizon. The line between what you see and what you can't. The door opened behind her. Commander Reeves stepped out, papers tucked under his arm. His expression was its usual balance of steel and warmth, the kind that could tear you apart or hold you together, depending on which side you landed on. "Walk with me, petty officer," he said. No salute, not here, just a shared rhythm of footsteps across concrete. "You handled that well," he said after a few strides. "Could have embarrassed them, humiliated them in front of the entire hall. You didn't." "They were kids," she replied. 3 months out of basic. They reacted the way they were trained to protect the space, control what doesn't fit. Their mistake was thinking control equals understanding." Reeves nodded. "Still, restraint isn't common these days. Most operators would have dropped 2 of them before the MPs even showed up." "Restraint's underrated," Maya said. "Anyone can fight. It takes control to choose not to." They turned toward the northern complex. Low concrete buildings that looked the same in daylight but transformed at dusk into shapes and shadows. A line of trucks rumbled by, headlights cutting through the dark. Inside Reeves's office, the lights were dim. Tactical maps covered the walls, thin red strings connecting coordinates like veins in a living body. Maya had seen this office 100 times, but it always felt like stepping into the center of a storm that hadn't broken yet. "Sit," Reeves said, pulling open a drawer. He laid out a thick folder marked Training OPS, Desert 72 HR Red Team. She read it once and already felt the shift inside her, gears turning, instincts clicking into place. "You're leading Team Echo," he said. "Insertion at 400, 3-day endurance op, non-lethal but full contact. Opposition force will have air assets, vehicles, the works." "Standard 72-hour stress test," she murmured, scanning the map. The lines of terrain rose in her mind like a memory, valleys, ridges, blind spots. Who else is running? Davies. 2 Marine Force recon units under Phillips and Cruz. You've trained half of them at one point or another. Maya's eyes flicked over the topographical map, steep ridges, narrow canyons, dry washes that twisted like veins across the desert. Night navigation. Modified version, Reeves said. More distance between checkpoints, less margin for error. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. This isn't about speed. It's about discipline under pressure. The desert doesn't care who's fastest. It punishes whoever forgets to think. She traced a ridge line with her finger. How many of them will forget? Reeves gave a half smile. At least half, that's by design. Maya looked up at him. We're supposed to fail. You're supposed to learn, he corrected. Same thing sometimes. They studied the map together. The fluorescent light above buzzed quietly, the only sound between sentences. Davies will take the valley, Maya said. He always does, fast, direct, confident. Reeves nodded. And you? The high ground, she said without hesitation. Slower, but it keeps visibility. I want to watch how they move before I move myself. He regarded her for a long moment. You always did like patience. Patience keeps you alive. He closed the folder, sliding it toward her. Brief your team at 600. You know the drill. She rose from the chair but paused at the door. Commander, she said quietly, those recruits earlier, don't hit them too hard in debrief. Reeves tilted his head. Why not? Because they'll already hit themselves harder than anyone else could. He nodded, understanding. Fair point. Maya stepped back into the night. The base had gone quiet, only the occasional echo of laughter from the barracks and the rhythmic thrum of distant engines. The California air carried salt from the ocean and dust from the hills, two worlds meeting in a single breath. She let it fill her lungs, grounding her. Then she headed toward the quarters. Sleep came late. When it did, it came with the familiar edges of memory, images that weren't nightmares, but they weren't rest either. A child's scream. A door kicked open. Sand under her knees. The last words of a friend she couldn't save. Every operator had their ghosts. She just learned to work with hers. Morning hit like it always did on base. Sharp, cold, efficient. The sun hadn't cleared the horizon yet, but the air already hummed with purpose. At 600, Maya stood at the front of the briefing room. 3 faces looked back at her. Sergeant Marcus Webb, former ranger, methodical, unflappable. He wrote everything down, even things he already knew. Petty Officer Second Class Jennifer Harrison, medic, sharp-eyed, steady hands, the kind of calm that made others breathe easier. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Mitchell, older, a touch cynical, but when he spoke, everyone listened. Her team, 3 people who didn't need speeches. The desert exercise, she began. 72 hours. Opposition force will use full tactical protocols. We're playing defense on their home ground. Mitchell crossed his arms. Heard Davies already bragging he'll hit the finish line in 48 hours. Maya didn't look up from the map. He might, if he doesn't get tagged first. A faint smile tugged at Harrison's mouth. Maya spread the terrain map across the table. We're taking the ridge route, north to east. It's longer, harder, but offers observation advantage. Opper will focus on valleys where speed's possible. We avoid those. Webb leaned forward. Longer route means more water load, slower movement. Correct, she said, but survival beats speed every time. Mitchell grunted in agreement. Smart beats fast. Maya nodded. We'll move during twilight hours, rest during peak heat. Total radio silence except emergencies. Opper will be tracking frequencies. Harrison glanced up. Medical emergencies count. Medical, equipment failure, or direct contact requiring extraction. Anything else, we work through it. The door opened. Commander Reeves entered, followed by Captain Davies and his team, 4 men with easy confidence and fresh uniforms. The contrast was almost cinematic. "Morning," Davies said, flashing a grin. "Heard you're planning the scenic route." "We're planning the successful route," Maya replied evenly. Davies chuckled, settling into his chair. "Sure, just don't get lost up there." Reeves cut in before the banter could grow teeth. "Both teams will get full mission parameters at 1800 hours. Until then, gear prep and coordination. Treat this as live. Opera won't hold back." As Reeves spoke, Maya studied Davies. He wasn't arrogant, not really, just young enough to believe that confidence could outlast chaos. She'd been that person once too. After the briefing, Davies caught her in the hallway. His grin was gone now. "You really think slow and steady works in a place like that?" Maya stopped. "You really think the desert cares how fast you move?" He blinked, then smiled again, but softer this time. "Fair point. Good luck out there, Chun." "You too." The gear room smelled like oil, canvas, and heat. Webb was already organizing his loadout by weight distribution. Harrison was checking her med kit for leaks. Mitchell was testing comms channels, every frequency clear, his hands moving with muscle memory precision. Maya inspected her rifle, a modified M4 carbine. She carried it through 3 deployments. Every scratch on the receiver told a story she'd never repeat out loud. Disassemble, clean, lubricate, reassemble. The rhythm was therapy, the kind that didn't ask questions. Mitchell placed a small stack of folded clothing on the table. "Merino base layers," he said. "Got M from supply, better than standard issue. Won't smell like death after 12 hours. "Does it meet regulation?" Maya asked. "Already checked," he said, smiling. "We're good." Harrison tested hydration bladders. 2 per person plus backup canteens. Enough for 3 days, minimal resupply. "Perfect," Maya said. "We skip the caches. If we don't rely on them, Opera wastes manpower guarding them." Webb nodded approvingly. "Let them watch empty sand." They moved like a machine, each action silent, purposeful, disciplined. Years of shared operations had fused them into something tighter than family. Families could argue. Teams like this just worked. When the Marine Recon leader, Gunnery Sergeant Phillips, appeared in the doorway, the conversation paused. Compact, solid, eyes like carved steel. "Heard this is where the SEALs keep their secrets," Phillips said, half grinning. Meyer extended a hand. "Petty Officer Chun." He shook it. "Phillips just got briefed. Looks like a hell of a scenario." "Opera's good," Maya said. "They know the terrain." "My favorite kind of nightmare," Phillips said. "We'll make it work." "You've run desert ops before." 2 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. We specialize in recon and surveillance, not usually the first through the door." "That'll help," she said. "Patience wins this one." "Maybe," he replied, scribbling in a small notebook. "Mind if I borrow some of your tactics?" "Information sharing's encouraged," Maya said. "This isn't SEAL versus Marine. We're all on the same side." He smiled. "Sure, but bragging rights never hurt." "Then earn them," she said quietly. By evening, the sun dipped behind the hills again. The desert wind was colder now, carrying the smell of oil, dust, and expectation. The final briefing at 1800 brought all 4 teams together. Large screens glowed with maps and coordinates. Reeves, Captain Walsh, and Colonel Briggs stood at the front, their presence heavy enough to silence a room. "This is not competition," Reeves began. "It's survival training. Opera will hunt you with full tactical realism. Treat it like war, because one day it will be." The words sank into the room like gravity. Maya studied the map. Her route stretched across the northern ridges, long and exposed. Perfect. Exactly where no one else would dare to go. Davies' insertion point was in the valley, predictable and fast. Phillips and Cruz on the flanks. 4 teams, 4 approaches. No one said it, but everyone felt it. Half of them wouldn't make it. When the briefing ended, the operators filed out into the dark. The sky was clear, cold stars scattered across infinite black. Davies caught up with her near the vehicles. His tone was different now, more respect than rivalry. "Whatever happens out there," he said, "watch your back." Maya nodded, "Always do." As he walked away, Mitchell appeared beside her. "He's nervous." "Good," she said, "means he's still human." "Think we'll make it?" he asked. Maya looked up at the stars again. "We'll make it work, that's what we do." She started walking toward the barracks. Her shadow stretched long under the floodlights, moving like it belonged to someone twice her size. Behind her, the base hummed with engines, orders, and the invisible heartbeat of men and women who lived by routine, and risked everything when routine broke. Tomorrow at 400, the game would begin. And in that desert, silence would be her weapon again. Because sometimes the strongest presence isn't the loudest voice in the room. It's the one that moves without needing to be seen. How do you prepare for the kind of silence that can swallow you whole? You don't. You just step into it and hope it spits you back out. The desert was still when the trucks rolled out at 3:45. Headlights off, engines low. The air was thick with that strange stillness that only exists before something begins, like the world itself was waiting to see who'd flinch first. Maya sat in the back of the lead truck, her rifle across her knees, her eyes fixed on the horizon. No music, no chatter, just the hum of diesel and the distant whisper of wind moving across sand. She could feel the tension in her team without even looking. Webb's posture too straight, Harrison's hands resting a little too still on her med pack. Mitchell, calm as always, chewing a piece of gum like it was his anchor to reality. Nobody talked about fear out here, you just carried it differently. Some wore it as silence, some as jokes. Maya wore hers as focus. The radio crackled softly. "Echo 1, this is base command. You're green in 2 minutes. Repeat, 2 mics to go time." "Copy that," she said, voice low. She pulled her gloves tighter, checked her weapon again even though she didn't need to. Routine was comfort. Routine was control. The driver glanced back. "You ever get used to this part?" Maya looked out the window. The first gray light was spreading across the desert floor, long shadows stretching toward infinity. "You don't get used to it," she said. "You just stop expecting comfort." The truck slowed, then stopped. Dust drifted through the headlights like mist. Reeves' voice came over the comm. "Echo team, insertion confirmed. Good hunting." The back doors opened. The desert air hit like a slap, dry, sharp, electric. Maya stepped out first. The ground crunched under her boots. The stars above hadn't faded yet. They burned like cold fire. She scanned the horizon. Nothing moved, perfect. "Webb, Harrison, Mitchell, let's go," she said softly. They moved in a low line, each step measured, deliberate. No wasted motion. The ridge was a mile east, elevation high enough to see across the entire basin. She wanted that vantage point before sunrise. The sand shifted underfoot, whispering secrets. Every sound felt louder out here. The clink of gear, the brush of fabric, even breath had weight. Halfway to the ridge, Mitchell spoke for the first time. "You ever notice how quiet it gets before things go wrong?" "Always," Maya replied. "And yet we still walk toward it." "That's the job," she said. By the time they reached the ridge, dawn had begun to stretch its fingers across the horizon. The sky glowed faintly orange, painting the dunes in soft gradients of fire and ash. They dropped into position behind a cluster of rocks. Maya unfolded her scope and began scanning the valley. Far below, the other teams were on the move. Dust trails snaked behind vehicles and figures, faint but visible. Davies' group was already making time across the flatland, just like she expected, fast, confident, and loud. "Valley team's overcommitting," she murmured. Mitchell peered through his binoculars. "Looks like they're trying to clear the first checkpoint before sunup." "They'll burn half their water doing it," Maya said. "The desert punishes speed." Webb logged the coordinates, his pencil scratching quietly on the map. You think Opper's waiting there? They're always waiting somewhere, Maya said. The question is when they want you to see them. She looked further east where the land fractured into ravines. Perfect ambush territory. She'd been there before, different continent, same terrain. Same smell of heat and dust and danger waiting to bloom. Movement 2 clicks north, Harrison said suddenly, eyes locked on her scope. Looks like recon drones, low altitude. Maya shifted, friendly. No markings, thermal signatures hot. Opper, Maya confirmed. They're sweeping early. Already, Mitchell said. They're supposed to wait till phase 2. They're testing response time, she said, seeing who panics first. Davies will, Webb muttered. Let him, Maya replied. She kept watching, patient as stone. The drones passed overhead, their faint hum fading into the wind. No reaction, no signal, no movement. That was the difference between experience and instinct. After 15 minutes, the drones disappeared. Harrison exhaled slowly. That was close. It was necessary, Maya said. They'll report no contact. That's exactly what we want. Mitchell adjusted his comms earpiece. You ever get tired of being right all the time? Only when people stop learning from it, she said. He chuckled, that's fair. The morning burned hotter by the hour. The sun climbed higher, baking the sand into something alive. Mirage lines shimmered on the horizon. Water became a thought instead of a thing. By midday, they'd covered another 3 kilometers, keeping to the shadows of the ridges. Sweat slicked the inside of Maya's gloves. Her shoulders ached, but she ignored it. Pain was just another voice in the background. They found a dry ravine around noon and set up a temporary observation point. Webb unfolded the solar tarp for shade. Harrison checked vitals. Mitchell cleaned optics. Every movement efficient, rehearsed, automatic. Then the first explosion rolled through the valley. It was distant, muffled by heat, but unmistakable. Contact, Mitchell said, instantly on alert. Maya lifted her binoculars. A plume of smoke spiraled upward from the far end of the valley. Davies, she said under her breath. Another blast followed, then gunfire, short, sharp bursts. They're being ambushed, Harrison said. Simulated rounds, Maya confirmed. But still, that's too early for phase 2. Webb frowned. Opper's accelerating their timeline. Maya nodded slowly. They're adapting to behavior. Davies moved fast. They're punishing him for it. Should we move to assist? Mitchell asked. She lowered the binoculars. Negative, we hold position. Our job isn't rescue, it's survival. Mitchell hesitated. They'll be overrun in minutes. I know, she said quietly. He looked at her. And you're okay with that? No, she said, but this is the lesson they need, and the one they'll remember. The valley erupted again, the distant flashes catching sunlight like mirrors. Through her scope, she could see Davies' team breaking formation, scattering toward the canyon wall. Predictable, desperate. They're done, Webb said softly. Phase 1 ends in 20 minutes, Maya replied. We stay invisible until then. They waited, the gunfire faded, the smoke thinned. The valley went quiet again, eerily so. At exactly 1300 hours, Reeves' voice crackled through the comms. Phase 1 complete. Teams Alpha and Bravo neutralized. Echo and Delta continue mission. Opper forces expanding perimeter. Maya tapped her headset twice. Copy. She looked at her team. Pack up, we move east. They rose in silence, dust rising around them like ghosts. As they moved, Mitchell glanced sideways. You think Reeves planned that ambush? Probably, Maya said. You sound certain. He knows Davies' habits better than anyone. He knew he'd rush it. And he let him. Sometimes command teaches with consequences. The words came out colder than she meant them to. By late afternoon, the heat became unbearable. Every step left a print that shimmered behind them before vanishing in the wind. Their lips cracked, their shoulders burned. Harrison checked the hydration stats. 2 liters each left if we stick to ration plan. Good, Maya said. We'll refill at the next waypoint, coordinates 54 Alpha 32, 2 clicks northeast. Webb shaded his eyes, squinting ahead. That ridge up there. Yeah, Maya said, let's move. They climbed in silence. The slope was steeper than it looked. Sand slid under their boots, forcing them to fight for every step. The wind picked up, carrying with it something faint. A smell. Burnt fuel. Maya froze. Hold, she whispered. They crouched instantly, weapons low, eyes scanning the horizon. Talk to me, Mitchell said. Smell that, Maya murmured. Webb sniffed. Yeah, gasoline, maybe 30-40 meters east. Maya crawled forward, binoculars pressed to her face. Through the heat shimmer she saw movement, a flash of metal, a hint of green camouflage. Opera team. 3 of them crouched beside an overturned ATV, setting up a portable antenna. Recon unit, she whispered. Comms relay. If they activate that, we lose radio silence advantage. Mitchell tightened his grip on the rifle. Orders. Engage quietly, Maya said. Non-lethal, we need their gear intact. They moved like shadows, low, silent, efficient. The sand absorbed their steps. The world seemed to hold its breath again. Maya counted 3 heartbeats between each move. 5 meters, 3, 1. Mitchell reached the first opper, caught him in a chokehold before he could react. Webb disarmed the second with a precise strike. Harrison flanked right, hitting the third with a tranquilizer dart before he even turned. All 3 down, clean, fast. Clear, Mitchell whispered. Maya knelt beside the comms unit. Her fingers worked quickly, dismantling the antenna's power core. They were transmitting coordinates, she said, scanning the small display. Looks like a signal beacon. To what? Webb asked. She stared at the screen. The transmission log was Opera's format. It was external, encrypted. This isn't simulation data, she said quietly. This is live signal relay. Harrison frowned. You mean? I mean someone's piggybacking the exercise feed. Mitchell cursed softly. Could be intel leak. Could be worse, she said. The wind shifted again, carrying the faint echo of rotor blades in the distance. Helicopters, real ones, not part of the drill. She looked toward the horizon, and for the first time that day, felt a chill crawl up her spine. Gear up, she said sharply. We move now. What's going on? Harrison asked. Maya's jaw tightened. Something's wrong. Someone just turned a training op into something else. They started moving fast, the light beginning to fade. The desert stretched before them, endless and unknowable. Behind them, the captured comms unit blinked once, twice, then emitted a faint pulse, barely visible in the dust. A signal had been sent, and somewhere far beyond their sight, someone answered it. When does a game stop being a game? Maybe the moment you stop feeling safe. Or maybe the moment you realize you never were. By the time the second helicopter passed overhead, the sun had already dropped behind the ridge. The light changed, harsh orange bleeding into bruised blue. It painted the sand in shadows that moved when nothing else did. Maya crouched low against a boulder, her hand raised to signal stillness. The faint chop of rotors echoed across the canyon, fatting, then returning. Mitchell pressed his ear to the ground. That's not training flight pattern, he whispered. Too low, too erratic. Webb checked his wrist display. Base comms still silent, no acknowledgement on encoded channels. Maya's voice was calm but taut. Keep transmissions off. If it's external, we don't want to light ourselves up. Harrison's breathing quickened. If those birds aren't Opera, who the hell are they? Maya didn't answer right away. She scanned the sky, no insignia, no lights, nothing but dark outlines slicing through the dusk. military birds stripped of identifiers. That wasn't part of any 72-hour simulation. "Pack it up," she ordered quietly. "We move east, slow and low, stay in shadow." They moved like ghosts, blending with terrain, senses tuned to the smallest sound, the shuffle of wind, the soft drag of sand beneath boots. Every step carried more weight than the one before. At 1920 hours, they reached a cluster of rocks and halted. The temperature had dropped sharply. The heat of the day turned to bone-deep chill. Webb knelt beside her, checking coordinates on his wrist pad. "We're 30 clicks from the extraction point. No signal from command since the last phase announcement." Maya nodded, and Opper. "Quiet, too quiet." Mitchell grunted. "So we're blind, deaf, and maybe surrounded. Love that." She gave a faint smile. "You always did like drama." But beneath the dry tone, her chest was tight. It wasn't fear, it was something sharper, awareness, the kind that only came when the pieces stopped fitting together. She opened the captured comms unit again. The screen flickered weakly, its power cell almost drained. The last recorded transmission scrolled across the display: signal transfer, remote node active, a priority encryption, red level. She stared at it. Red level encryption. That wasn't used in training. That was operational, classified. Her voice softened, almost to herself. "This isn't simulation data." Mitchell heard, "Say again." "Someone's feeding live coordinates out of this range," she said. "Encrypted channel, red level clearance, not part of Opper." Harrison frowned. "Could command be testing us?" "No," Maya said firmly. "Reeves doesn't gamble with classified networks." Webb looked up. "Then who does?" Maya didn't answer. The wind shifted again, bringing with it a faint metallic scent, fuel maybe, or oil. She looked east. In the distance, a dull light flickered once, then died. "Campfire," Mitchell whispered. "Too dim," she said. "Infrared flare maybe, could be distress, could be bait." The silence stretched. Finally Maya stood. "We check it. Webb, Harrison, stay tight. Mitchell, rear watch." They moved, following the faint glow until it vanished completely. The world grew darker with every step. The stars came out overhead, cold and bright, filling the silence between their breaths. When they reached the light source, it wasn't a fire. It was a wreck. A drone, military grade. Its wings snapped in half, body half buried in the sand. Smoke still whispered from the cracked fuselage. Webb knelt beside it. "Not Opper tech. This is reconnaissance model, Navy build." "Model E-47, Maya said quietly. "We used them 2 years ago in training ops overseas." Mitchell crouched beside her. "So what's it doing here? They retired these last year." She ran a finger along the serial number plate. It had been sanded off, erased. "Someone wanted it untraceable," she said. Harrison shined her flashlight briefly into the cockpit. "No data drives." Maya's stomach tightened. "Removed." "Ripped out," Harrison said. Maya exhaled slowly. This wasn't random. The wind rose, scattering sand across the wreckage. The sound it made was like whispering, low, persistent, impossible to ignore. Mitchell scanned the horizon again. "You think this is part of some test?" She shook her head. "No, tests have safety parameters, this doesn't." Webb straightened. "Then we're off script." "Way off," Maya said. They took a knee, huddling close as the temperature plummeted. The desert could kill you with heat by day and cold by night. Nature never picked sides, it just waited for weakness. Mitchell rubbed his hands together. "So what's the move?" Maya looked up at the stars, tracing constellations like a compass. "We keep moving east. Terrain gets rougher, but there's cover in the canyons. We find calm range or we find truth, whichever comes first." Webb checked the drone one last time. "We can salvage the thermal battery, maybe use it to power our beacon." "Do it," she said, "but don't broadcast. Last thing we need is to tell whoever's listening where we are." As Webb worked, Harrison moved quietly to Maya's side. Her voice was low, uncertain. "You think Reeves knows?" Maya didn't look at her. "If he does, he's not the one pulling the strings." "And if he does?" Maya finally met her eyes. "Then someone just put him and us in the dark." Harrison nodded, silent understanding passing between them. At 2100 they resumed movement. The stars became their only light. The moon hadn't risen yet, and the horizon looked like an open wound, black and endless. Every few minutes Maya checked behind them, the kind of paranoia that keeps you alive. Once she thought she saw movement, a flicker of shadow cresting a dune, but when she turned her scope on it, there was nothing there. Nothing visible, at least. By 2300, they reached the canyon mouth. Towering rock walls swallowed them whole, the air shifting from dry wind to cool stillness. Mitchell whistled softly. "Feels like a tomb." "Better a tomb than an open grave," Maya said. They found a small alcove and settled in for the night. Webb set perimeter sensors, Harrison distributed rations, and Mitchell took first watch. For the first time in 20 hours, Maya sat still, her back against stone, her breathing slow. Sleep wouldn't come. It rarely did. Her mind played back the sound of the rotors, the glint of that drone, the erased serial plate, things that didn't add up. She remembered Reeves' face in that briefing, the steady certainty in his tone. This is not competition. It's survival training. So what if someone had taken those words literally? Somewhere out there, people she'd trained, mentored, even laughed with could be walking into something real, and they didn't know it yet. She opened her notebook and wrote in small, careful script. "If this is real, they'll come for whoever knows too much." The pen trembled slightly in her hand. She stopped writing, exhaled, and stared into the dark. Hours passed. The stars moved overhead. The world didn't change, but she did. At 200, Mitchell nudged her awake. "You need to see this." She blinked, grabbed her scope, followed his gesture toward the mouth of the canyon. Far out on the plain, a convoy was moving, headlights off, engines barely audible. 3 trucks unmarked. Not opera. Not base. She felt her stomach drop. "Infrared," she ordered. Mitchell flicked on the thermal lens. The screen lit up in cold blue and hot red. The trucks glowed faintly red. Inside them, 5, maybe 6 signatures per vehicle. Heavier weapons, organized. Webb whispered, "Those aren't recruits." "No," Maya said, "they're hunters." Harrison's voice shook. "How do we know they're not friendlies?" Maya's tone was flat, "Sure, because friendlies don't turn their lights off." They watched in silence as the convoy moved west, toward the valley where Davies' team had been hit earlier. Mitchell cursed under his breath. "If they're headed there." "They'll find what's left," Maya said, "and if they were looking for us before." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Webb looked at her. "So what's our move, boss?" Maya studied the map under her dim light. "They're sweeping west to east. That gives us 2 options. Head north through the rocks or south through open dunes." "North gives us cover," Mitchell said, "but slower." "South is faster," Harrison added, "but exposed." Maya thought for a long moment. She could almost hear the desert breathing around them. "North," she decided. "We take the long way, they'll expect us to run fast. We won't." "Copy that." They packed up in silence, leaving no trace. Every footprint was brushed away, every glint of metal covered. As they began the climb, Maya glanced back once more. The convoy had stopped now. One of the trucks had turned slightly, its spotlight flicking on for a single second, sweeping the canyon walls before vanishing again. Just a second. But enough for her to feel it. They knew someone was out here. The climb was brutal. Loose gravel, thin air, exhaustion clawing at focus. Webb slipped once, caught himself, muttering a curse. Harrison steadied him with one hand. Maya didn't speak, she just climbed. One hand, one step, one breath at a time. When they reached the top, the desert stretched beneath them, vast, silent, merciless. Mitchell dropped to one knee, scanning through the scope again. They're still moving west. Looks like they're triangulating something. Probably the transmission beacon, Maya said quietly. From the drone. She nodded. They're following it like breadcrumbs. Webb sighed, and we're next on the trail. Maya's eyes were distant now, reflective. Maybe, but they made one mistake. What's that? Harrison asked. They think we're still playing by their rules. They hiked through the night. No breaks, no words, just the rhythmic crunch of boots and the whisper of wind carving through stone. By dawn, the light returned, soft and golden, bleeding across the horizon. Maya stopped at the crest of a ridge and looked out. The desert glowed like fire under glass. The convoy was a faint memory behind them. The world felt both infinite and suffocating. Mitchell came up beside her. You think command knows what's happening? If they don't by now, she said, we'll have to make them. And if we can't? She looked at him, steady, calm, eyes unreadable. Then we survive long enough to find out who did this. The wind caught her hair, carrying sand across the ridge like smoke. Somewhere behind them, engines roared again, distant but closer than before. She didn't look back, she just started walking. Because survival isn't about who shoots first. It's about who refuses to stop moving. At what point does survival stop feeling like a mission and start feeling like a confession? Maybe when you start wondering who's listening. The wind had changed again by mid-morning. It carried a taste of metal now, like the air itself was corroding. The sky had turned pale, washed out by heat and sand. Every sound, every movement felt stretched thin. Maya led the line, eyes on the horizon. No comms, no signals, no backup, just instinct and the steady rhythm of breath against the roar of emptiness. They had been walking for hours through terrain that looked the same in every direction. Barren ridges, cracked earth, distant mirages that promised water and delivered nothing. The human body wasn't made for this kind of repetition, but soldiers learned to outlast what they couldn't outrun. Webb checked his compass again. We're still holding nor-northeast, he said, his voice dry and rough. Ridge split up ahead 2 routes. Elevation difference, Maya asked. Minor eastern path, exposed but faster. Then we take the western, she said. Cover first, speed later. Mitchell groaned softly. You just hate shortcuts. She gave a faint smile without looking back. Shortcuts belong to people who don't plan on coming home. They moved toward the ridge, every step sinking an inch into the hot sand. The world shimmered like liquid. Heat distortion turned shadows into movement and movement into ghosts. Then faint at first came the sound, low, distant, rhythmic. Engines. Harrison stiffened. Tell me that's not them. Maya dropped to a crouch, raised a hand. Down. They hit the dirt instantly. The sound grew louder, closer. Mitchell slid his rifle forward, adjusting the scope. 2 trucks, maybe 3, same profile as before. Maya nodded, patterns predictable, they're sweeping grid by grid. Webb squinted through binoculars. They've got mounted weapons, not opera issue, definitely live rounds. Copy, she said quietly. Hold fire, let them pass. They watched as the convoy crested a nearby dune, 3 matte black trucks, windows tinted, tires kicking up waves of sand. Their engines sounded heavy, tuned for torque. Then one truck stopped, its rear hatch opened. 2 figures climbed out. Their silhouettes were sharp, deliberate. They weren't recruits. They weren't part of any drill. One of them raised a device, compact, metallic, shaped like a radar gun. He swept it slowly across the landscape. Harrison whispered, thermal sweep. Possibly, Maya said, but that tech looks newer. Narrow-beam sensor, maybe electromagnetic. Can it pick us up? Depends how much metal you're carrying. Webb muttered, we're walking arsenals. The beam paused, turned, stopped right on their ridge. Move, Maya hissed. They slid down the slope in near silence, every second feeling heavier. But silence couldn't hide heat signatures, not forever. The first shot cracked the air like thunder. Sand exploded near Maya's left shoulder, real round, supersonic, close. Contact, Mitchell yelled, returning fire instantly. His rifle barked once, twice. Maya hit the ground, scanning for angles. Two shooters, high ground northeast, focus suppression fire. Webb pivoted, sighted, and let off a tight burst. Harrison dragged the medical pack behind cover, her hands already shaking from adrenaline. The second volley came faster, controlled bursts, trained. Whoever they weren't amateurs. Mitchell ducked behind a rock. These guys are good. They're real, Maya snapped. That's not simulation fire. Another round whistled past, hitting the rock beside Webb's head. Stone fragments cut his cheek. Status, she called. Superficial, he grunted, still in the fight. Then stay low. The desert around them turned into a furnace of chaos, sand kicked up by bullets, heat shimmering through the haze of smoke and dust. The trucks above repositioned, engines revving. They're flanking left, Harrison shouted. Mitchell counter. He turned, took two controlled shots, both clean. One target went down, rolled into the sand. The other kept moving. Two down, he said, voice tight. At least four more still firing. Maya scanned through her scope, saw one of the attackers reload and gesture. Their formation wasn't random, it was coordinated. Military precision. Not freelancers, she murmured. These are trained. Webb fired again, hitting a tire on one truck. It veered, grinding to a halt. The rest pulled back slightly, returning to suppressive fire. Then silence. A silence that hurt. Mitchell's breathing came fast. Why they stop? Maya's eyes narrowed. They're repositioning. They want us to think they're gone. Maybe they are, Webb said. Or maybe, she said, they're setting the trap closer. The words were barely out when an explosion tore through the ridge above them. The blast threw sand, rock, and bodies in every direction. The world went white, heat, noise, confusion. Maya hit the ground hard, her ears ringing, vision swimming. She tried to move, but everything felt distant, muted. When the world started to come back into focus, she heard it, someone screaming. Harrison. Maya rolled over, crawled through dust and smoke until she found her, half buried under debris, blood soaking her left sleeve. Harrison, stay with me. Harrison's voice was weak but steady. Shrapnel arm, not deep. Maya's hands worked automatically. She tore open the med kit, wrapped a tourniquet, checked pulse. You're fine, you're staying fine. Mitchell appeared beside her, coughing through dust. Webb's hit too, shrapnel in the side, minor bleed. She nodded. Stabilize him. We need to move before they drop another one. Through the smoke she could see silhouettes moving again, faint, methodical. The attackers weren't chasing. They were checking positions. Mitchell cursed softly. They're sweeping for confirmation. Exactly, Maya said. They think we're dead. Good, he said. Let's keep it that way. They waited, motionless. Minutes turned into an hour. The sound of engines faded slowly, replaced by the constant whisper of wind over sand. Only when the horizon was empty did Maya move again. Webb status, she said. Hurts, he muttered, still functional. Harrison. She nodded, pale but conscious. I'll live. Then we move. Where? Mitchell asked. Back west toward the canyon. We regroup, reassess. No more open ground. He frowned. We'll lose distance. We've already lost control, she said softly. Now we survive. They moved slowly, every step careful, deliberate. Maya supported Harrison with one arm, rifle in the other. Webb limped but refused help. Mitchell covered rear. The sun was falling again by the time they reached the canyon's edge. Shadows stretched long, swallowing everything. They found a cave barely large enough to hide in and collapsed inside. No one spoke for a long time. Harrison broke the silence first. They weren't training rounds. I felt the heat. No, Maya said quietly, they were. Webb leaned back against the rock, sweat and blood mixing on his face. So who are they? Maya didn't answer right away. Her hands trembled slightly as she cleaned the sand from her weapon. Finally she said, not Opper, not our allies. They're hunting someone or something and we're just in their way. Mitchell frowned. So what now? We can't outrun them, we can't outgun them, and command's gone dark. We don't run, she said. We find proof. Proof of what? That this happened, that it's real, that we weren't just ghosts out here. Harrison looked up, exhaustion in her eyes. You think command will believe us? They'll have to, Maya said, once we bring them what we find. Mitchell stared at her. You're planning to go back toward the wreck site, aren't you? She didn't reply. She didn't need to. That's suicide, he said. Maybe, she said softly. But if we don't, those people back there, Davies, Phillips, Cruz, they'll just disappear. Their families will get letters. Training accident. That's all it'll say. Her voice wavered, not from fear but from something deeper. Anger, grief, duty. I won't let that be their story, she said. Mitchell sighed, shaking his head. You realize what this means, right? We're not soldiers anymore, we're witnesses. Maya met his eyes. Then we better survive long enough to testify. Night came fast. The desert grew colder. The silence pressed against them like a physical weight. Maya sat near the entrance, eyes scanning the horizon through the faint green glow of night vision. Webb slept. Harrison drifted in and out. Mitchell stayed awake beside her, his voice low. You ever wonder why it's always us? He asked. She glanced at him. Us. The ones who end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. The ones who see too much. She thought for a long moment, because we don't look away. He nodded slowly. That's the curse, isn't it? Maybe it's the calling, she said. He smiled faintly, looking out into the dark. I never figured you for the poetic type. I'm not, she said. I just know the desert has a way of stripping you down to what you really are. Outside, a faint rumble echoed across the dunes, distant but real. Engines again, she whispered. Mitchell raised his rifle. They're sweeping wider. Maya's jaw tightened. Good. That means they haven't found what they're looking for yet. What are they looking for? She looked back at him, eyes hard, voice barely above a whisper. Us. The night stretched on, cold and endless. The wind carried no answers, only questions. But Maya knew one thing now. Whatever this was, it had started long before today. And it wouldn't end here. Because sometimes the enemy isn't the one in front of you. It's the silence above you, the kind that orders you to forget. Why do we always go back? To the place we swore we'd never return to. Maybe because that's where the truth hides, under the ashes of fear. The desert before dawn was a strange thing, still, colorless, almost kind. The air was cool, the stars fatting behind thin clouds. It would be brutal again soon, once the sun rose, but for now it was almost gentle. Almost. Maya stood at the cave's mouth, staring at the horizon. She hadn't slept. The others had, in fragments, though none of them looked rested. Harrison's arm was bandaged tight. Webb's side was wrapped in gauze, blood dried to a rust-colored stain. Mitchell cleaned his rifle in silence, slow and methodical, like he was pretending that order still meant control. At 500, Maya finally spoke. We move in 20. Mitchell didn't look up, back to the wreck site. Yes. Even if those trucks are circling. Especially if they are. He sighed. You ever think about saying no? She gave a faint smile. It's not in the job description. Webb adjusted his pack with a wince. If they're tracking, we'll be walking straight into their grid. I know, Maya said. That's why we'll take the ridgeline, rougher, slower, less predictable. Harrison's voice was quiet but steady. And if we don't make it? Maya's eyes stayed on the horizon. Then we make it mean something. They moved at first light. The desert was still asleep. Shadows stretched long across the sand. Each step was deliberate, muffled by the soft ground. Maya walked point. She didn't need GPS. She knew how to navigate by instinct, by the shape of wind marks, the tilt of light, the subtle rhythm of terrain that spoke its own language. They kept to the high ground, weaving between rock spines and gullies. Heat began to rise by mid-morning, rippling the air into a mirage. No chatter, no complaints, just the sound of boots and breath. After 2 hours, they stopped to hydrate. Webb leaned against a rock, breathing hard. Feels like someone's watching. Someone probably is, Maya said. You always this reassuring, he muttered. Only on good days. Mitchell gave a low chuckle, but even that felt thin. The desert had a way of hollowing sound. Everything echoed inward. They reached the high ridge overlooking the basin around 900. Below, the wreck site shimmered in the heat, just a dark smear in the distance. Mitchell crouched beside her, no movement. Not yet. He frowned. That's worse. Agreed, she said softly. They waited for 10 long minutes, scanning through scopes, watching for the smallest twitch of motion. Nothing, not even a bird. Then faintly, the wind shifted again, carrying a hum. Engines, low, slow, steady. Webb cursed under his breath. They're back. Maya's scope locked onto the horizon. 3 trucks again, the same formation, same matte black paint, same deliberate pace. Only this time, something was different. They weren't sweeping. They were parked. A small cluster of tents surrounded the wreck site now. Antennas, power units, portable towers, a forward operating base set up overnight. Harrison's breath caught. They built a camp. Mitchell shook his head. That's not recon, that's occupation. Maya felt her pulse slow, not fear but focus. They're protecting something. What the drone? Webb asked. Maybe, she said, or what was inside it. Which was? That's what we're about to find out. They waited until the sun climbed high enough to bleach the shadows. Then Maya moved. Every inch forward felt like crawling into a heartbeat, one that could stop at any second. They used what cover they could: rock shelves, dried riverbeds, tall scrub that cut visibility just enough. By noon, they were less than 100 meters from the perimeter. Maya raised a fist. Stop. Through her binoculars, she could see the camp clearly now. A dozen men, heavily armed, rotating patrols. Their movements too precise for mercenaries, too silent for recruits. And on one of the tables inside the tent, a metal crate, unmarked, locked, a satellite uplink beside it. Harrison whispered, You think that's what the drone was carrying? Looks like it, Maya said. And if they're guarding it this tight, it's not standard hardware. Plan? Mitchell asked. Wait until nightfall. We move in, take what we can, get out. Webb frowned. And if they spot us? Then we don't miss. The hours dragged. The heat was merciless, the kind that made skin ache. Harrison fought dizziness twice. Maya forced her to sip electrolyte water. Mitchell stayed silent, watching through glass. As evening fell, the temperature dropped and the desert began to hum again. Coyotes in the distance, the crack of cooling rock, the quiet rhythm of fear. At 1900, they began to move. The camp glowed faintly under red floodlights. Shadows stretched long, softening into distortion. They crawled low, slow, silent. Mitchell went first, disabling a perimeter sensor. Webb followed, knife in hand, cutting through wire. Maya stayed last, covering their flank, her heartbeat sinking with every step forward. They reached the first tent without incident. Inside, crates of fuel, spare batteries, gear marked with code numbers she didn't recognize. Then they saw it. On the far side of the camp, under a larger canopy, stood a communications terminal. Active, running. And on its screen, a feed from somewhere deep in command headquarters, a map of the desert, dotted with red indicators. One of them was blinking, their own position. "Jesus," Mitchell whispered, "they're tracking us." "Not just us," Maya said. She pointed. The entire exercise grid was mapped, every opper, every trainee, every last one. Harrison's voice cracked. "They're logging it in real time. This isn't a simulation, it's surveillance." "On who?" Webb asked. "On us," Maya said. "On our responses, on our communications, on how we react when we think we're safe." Mitchell stared at her. "You're saying command's behind this?" "No," Maya said quietly. "Someone using command systems, hijacking them. That uplink isn't standard Navy encryption, it's corporate." Webb blinked. "Private." "Private," she confirmed. "They're testing something out here, live." "Testing what?" She stepped closer to the metal crate. It was small, about the size of a black box recorder, sealed with digital locks. She pressed her hand against its surface. It vibrated faintly. "AI module," she whispered. "Data relay core. This drone wasn't collecting imagery, it was recording decisions. Human ones." Mitchell's eyes widened. "Our decisions?" "All of ours," she said. "Command, opper, teams, every soldier in this exercise. Someone building an algorithm, a predictive combat model based on human reaction under real stress." Harrison swallowed hard. "So we're the experiment." Maya nodded. "And those trucks, they're the control." "Meaning?" "They're here to provoke fear, casualties, chaos. To see what we do when the rules vanish." Mitchell's jaw tightened. "That's why they fired live rounds." "Yes." "And Reeves?" Harrison asked. Maya hesitated. Either he doesn't know or he's been told not to. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally Webb said, "So what now?" Maya's voice was quiet, steady. "Now we end the experiment." "How?" "By breaking their data." She turned to the terminal. Her hands moved fast, unplugging cables, overloading circuits, pulling drives. Sparks snapped in the air. "Once this goes offline," she said, "they'll come running. We use that to extract the core." Mitchell took position near the tent flap. "We'll have less than a minute." "Then we make it count." The first alarm went off 20 seconds later. A sharp electronic wail cut through the night. Lights flared across the camp. Voices shouted orders. "Contact," Mitchell hissed. "Move," Maya ordered. They ran low and fast between tents, through light and shadow. Webb carried the core, Harrison covered their rear. Gunfire erupted behind them, real again. The sound punched through the night, echoing against the rocks. Maya spun, firing 2 quick bursts, one target down. Another ducked behind a truck. "East Ridge," she shouted. They sprinted for cover as bullets tore into sand. The metal core slammed against Webb's chest with every step. Mitchell stopped, turned, fired, controlled, precise. Another attacker dropped. "Keep moving," Maya yelled. The ridge was 50 meters away, 40, 30. Then a shot rang out, sharp, close, deliberate. Webb stumbled. Maya caught him before he fell, pulling him behind a boulder. His breathing was shallow, his eyes unfocused. "Side," he gasped, "lower left." She pressed her hand to the wound. Blood welled up fast, too fast. "Pressure," she snapped. Harrison dropped beside her, wrapping gauze, packing the wound, working with trembling hands. Mitchell fired over their heads, suppressing return fire. "We're running out of ammo." "Just keep them busy," Maya shouted. Webb's eyes fluttered. "Don't let them take it." "You hold that thought," she said, her voice breaking. "You're not done yet." But she knew. She could feel the warmth leaving his body, the way his breath came in uneven bursts. Harrison's voice cracked. "He's crashing." "Then work faster," Maya said, voice trembling but sharp. Another round hit the rock beside them, sending stone splinters flying. Mitchell ducked. We can't stay here. Maya's mind raced. The metal core was still clutched in Webb's hand. She pried it free, slipping it into her own pack. Then she leaned close, her hand on his shoulder. You did your job, she whispered. We'll finish it. His eyes met hers one last time. He tried to smile. Knew you would. And then stillness. Maya's jaw clenched. She closed his eyes with one gloved hand. Move, she said softly. They pulled back, dragging Webb's body into shadow, then turned and ran. The trucks behind them roared to life again, headlights slicing through the dark. The world became noise and light and dust. Maya didn't look back, not once. By the time they reached the ridge, the sky was already turning pale again. The desert, that vast, indifferent witness, said nothing. They collapsed behind a rock shelf. Harrison sobbed quietly. Mitchell sat with his back against the stone, breathing hard. Maya crouched beside them, the metal core between her hands. It was warm, alive. Webb didn't die for nothing, she said quietly. We get this out, we show them what really happened. And if they come after us, Mitchell asked. They already are. She looked east, where the sun was rising. Each ray of light felt heavier than the last. The experiment wasn't over. But the lie was cracking. And she'd just become the one thing they didn't account for. A soldier who refused to play by the script. What keeps you moving when everything else stops? Duty, revenge, or the promise that someone, somewhere, deserves the truth. The ridge burned under the newborn sun. The light was too clean, too bright, the kind that made everything look simple even when it was. Maya crouched in the shadow of a rock outcrop, her rifle resting across her knees. Her fingers traced the edge of the metal core hidden inside her pack. It pulsed faintly against her back like a second heartbeat. Harrison sat a few feet away, her arm bound and blood-stained. She hadn't said much since Webb's death. Her eyes were open but far away, seeing things beyond the desert, maybe beyond this world. Mitchell was packing, his boots grinding the sand. His silence wasn't grief. It was anger coiled and alive. At 6:30, Maya checked her compass. North by east, 40 kilometers to the extraction point, if command was still out there. She spoke softly, we move in 10. Mitchell stopped packing. And go where? Toward the same people who left us here. Toward evidence, she said. The only thing that makes this real. He frowned. They already know it's real, that's the problem. Maya looked at him, really looked. His face was lined with exhaustion and sand, eyes rimmed red. You still trust Reeves? He asked. She hesitated. I want to. That's not an answer. No, she said quietly, it's not. They began walking again. Every mile felt longer than the last. The desert was a slow knife, slicing through water, energy, patience. Their shadows stretched thin under the growing sun. At 1,000 hours, they reached a plateau overlooking the valley below. The land shimmered. The air wavered. Somewhere out there, engines echoed again, faint but unmistakable. They're still tracking, Harrison whispered. Maya nodded, patterns tighter now. They're cutting us off from the north. Mitchell checked his map. That leaves east open ground. She shook her head. Too exposed. We'll use the ravine network. It leads toward the comm relay tower. He raised an eyebrow. You think command will be waiting for us? I think someone will, she said. The ravine was deep and narrow, the walls close enough to touch on both sides. Shadows clung to the rocks. The air was cooler here, but the silence heavier. Harrison stumbled once, her bandaged arm pressed against her chest. Mitchell caught her, steadied her without a word. Keep moving, Maya said softly. We stop, we become signal beacons. They followed the winding path for hours until the ravine opened into a dry basin, cracked earth, scattered debris, and something half buried in the dust. Maya slowed, hold up. They approached cautiously. It was a body face down, uniform torn, boots coated in sand. Mitchell turned it over. Davies. His eyes were open, blank, the color drained from his skin. A single bullet wound marked his chest. His comm unit was gone. Harrison covered her mouth. Oh, God. Maya crouched, inspecting the wound. Entry clean, exit shredded. High-velocity round, close range. Execution, Mitchell muttered. Maya stared at the insignia on his sleeve, the same one she'd seen at the briefing days ago. He'd been cocky then, loud. Now he was just gone. She whispered, "They used us to find each other, to draw the map." Mitchell looked at her sharply. What? They needed stress data, but they also needed confirmation of the system's accuracy. Every team that made contact, every life signal, every casualty, it was recorded, correlated, verified. Meaning? Meaning we were never supposed to finish the exercise. We were the final test run. Harrison shook her head, tears streaking through dust. How do you even test something like that? Maya's voice was low. By seeing how long a person takes to die. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Mitchell said, "We can't let this get buried." Maya looked up. "We won't." By late afternoon, they reached the outer edge of the relay station. From above, it looked abandoned. 3 radio towers, 2 storage containers, and a small control shack half swallowed by sand. But there were fresh tire marks around the perimeter. Maya studied it through her scope. No guards visible, no lights, could be a trap. Mitchell grinned bitterly. "At this point, what is?" Harrison whispered, "If we can get that uplink working, we can send the data to command directly." "That's the plan," Maya said. They approached low, weapons raised, every sense burning. The air hummed faintly with static. The control shack door was half open. Maya signaled Mitchell to flank, Harrison to stay behind cover. She pushed the door open slowly. Inside, dust, old equipment, empty ration wrappers, but in the corner a single active screen glowed faintly. It displayed one line of text. "Relay access, locked user, Commander James Reeves." Maya froze. Mitchell stepped in behind her. "That's not possible." "It's his authorization," she said. "His clearance is the only one high enough to access these systems." Harrison's voice came through the comms, shaky. "You think he's been part of it all along?" Maya didn't answer. Her throat tightened. She remembered his voice at the briefing. "This is not competition, it's survival." Maybe he hadn't been lying after all. She typed into the console. "Override request, CHUNM priority, red." The system blinked. "Access granted." Mitchell stared. "You just got through." Maya frowned. "Too easy." The screen flickered, lines of code scrolling fast. Then the speakers crackled, and a voice came through, distorted, familiar. "Petty Officer Chun." Maya's pulse slowed. "Commander." "I was wondering when you'd find the relay," Reeves said, his tone calm, distant. "You always were the one who couldn't stop digging." "What is this?" she demanded. "What the hell have you done?" There was a pause, long enough to hear the faint hum of a server behind the voice. "Data integrity test," Reeves said finally. "A joint program. Civilian contractors, defense partners. The next generation of decision support AI. You were part of it from the start." "You're lying," she said. "Am I? Think about it. Every engagement, every casualty, every choice you've made out there, all of it recorded, analyzed, processed. We needed a baseline of human unpredictability. You provided it." Maya's hands tightened on the console. "You killed your own people for a program." "Collateral," he said flatly. "The data was too valuable to risk corruption with simulation bias. Only real fear yields real decision-making." Mitchell took a step forward. "You son of a—" Maya raised a hand to silence him. Her voice was steady, controlled. "You used me." "No," Reeves said. I trusted you to lead, and you did, better than anyone expected. That's why you're still alive. You murdered my team. They volunteered, he said, same as you. Maya stared at the glowing console. You think this makes you right? It makes us prepared, Reeves said. War is changing. Emotion is a weakness. This system will replace the need for instinct, for hesitation. It will predict outcomes before they happen. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You mean it'll replace people? He didn't deny it. The silence on the line was longer this time. When Reeves spoke again, his tone softened. You don't understand yet, but you will. Leave the data. Walk away. You've done enough. Maya's jaw tightened. You're wrong, Commander. I haven't even started. The screen flickered. Connection lost. Mitchell exhaled slowly. So what now? She turned to him. Now we make sure the world hears what he just said. They spent the next hour rerouting the signal manually, patching through old satellite lines buried under the sand. The heat had faded, replaced by a metallic chill that seemed to seep into the skin. At 1830 they had signal, weak, unstable, but real. Uplink active, Harrison said. Transmission window 90 seconds max. Good enough, Maya said. She pulled the metal core from her pack and connected it to the terminal. The screen flared, flooding with lines of encrypted data, names, timestamps, casualty logs. Proof. Mitchell grinned faintly. That's it, you did it. Not yet, she said. We still have to get it out. Where? Any network node outside base authority. Civilian frequencies, international relays. If we scatter the data across enough nodes, they can't erase it all. Harrison's fingers flew across the keyboard. Uploading to open satellite link. 50%, 60. Then the sound. Engines closer this time. Mitchell's head snapped up. They found us. Keep uploading, Maya shouted. The roar grew louder. Sand trembled. Lights appeared through the cracks in the door, beams sweeping across the desert floor. 80%, 90, Harrison's voice trembled. Almost. The shack exploded inward. The blast threw them off their feet. Dust, glass, and fire filled the air. Maya hit the ground hard, her ears ringing, vision fractured. When she looked up, the door was gone, replaced by silhouettes moving through smoke. Mitchell fired, dropping one, then another. The rest scattered, returning fire. Harrison, Maya yelled. I'm okay. Upload status. Transfer complete, she shouted, coughing. Data's gone. Maya pulled her to cover. Then so are we. They scrambled out the back, diving into the ravine as rounds tore through the shack behind them. The console inside caught fire, the screen melting under the heat. Maya didn't look back, she just ran. Mitchell covered their retreat, firing in bursts until his rifle clicked empty. He tossed it aside and followed, breathing ragged. When they finally stopped, the sky was bleeding orange into purple. Harrison collapsed, shaking. It's out there now, the data, someone will see it. Maya nodded, chest heaving. Someone will. Mitchell leaned against the rocks, eyes distant. And Reeves. He'll burn for this, she said. He gave a small, tired smile. You always say that like it's a promise. It is. They stayed hidden as night fell again. The desert cooled. The stars came out sharp and merciless. Maya sat alone, watching the horizon. Every part of her ached body, mind, soul. She thought about Webb, about Davies, about the recruits in the mess hall who had once mistaken her for someone ordinary. She wondered if Reeves had been right, if emotion really was a weakness. But when she looked at Harrison, sleeping against a rock with blood on her sleeve and dirt on her face, she knew the answer. Emotion wasn't weakness. It was the only thing left worth protecting. And somewhere far beyond this desert, a signal was spreading, carrying their truth through the noise. It wasn't over yet. Because some wars aren't fought for victory. They're fought so people remember what it means to be human. What happens when the lie finally breaks? When truth, like sunlight, burns through every shadow you've been told to trust. For Maya Chun, that question was no longer philosophical. It was survival. The night was long, too quiet, the kind of quiet that made your pulse sound louder than the wind. They'd found a hollow ridge near the relay station's ruins, just deep enough to hide, just high enough to see the valley. Smoke still rose from what was left of the shack. The data core was gone. The upload was finished. But that didn't mean they were safe. Mitchell sat nearby, staring at the horizon with his back against the stone. His face was gray under the starlight. Every so often he'd blink hard, like he was trying to stay awake through exhaustion that had gone past physical. Harrison had fallen asleep beside him, wrapped in a torn blanket. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. The blood seeping through her bandage looked darker now. Maya sat a few feet away, rifle across her knees, scanning the empty sand. She hadn't spoken in hours. Her mind replayed Reeves' voice, calm, clinical, almost paternal. Leave the data, walk away. She wondered if he'd already started deleting files, cleaning footprints, rewriting history. She wondered how long before they were officially declared KIA, lost in a training malfunction. And she wondered how many others had been lost before them. When the first light touched the horizon, she whispered to no one. Not this time. At 500, Mitchell stirred. We moving. Soon, she said. He rubbed his eyes. Extraction points 20 clicks north, right? If the data went through, someone will be looking. If, Maya echoed softly. You really think command won't respond? She didn't answer. He sighed. Hell of a thing, huh? Spend your life fighting for something, only to find out it's fighting you back. Maya looked toward the east, the first sunlight glinting off the rocks. We fight for people, not systems. He gave a quiet laugh. Yeah, but the systems sure make it harder. By mid-morning they were moving again. Slow, deliberate. Every step felt like dragging the weight of everything they'd lost. The landscape began to change, less open sand, more broken rock and wire fencing. They were approaching the old logistics compound, abandoned years ago after a supply chain collapse. Perfect for extraction. Perfect for ambush. Maya lifted her scope. No movement, no drones, no shimmer of heat signature. Still, she couldn't shake it, that feeling in her chest, the one she'd learned never to ignore. Stay close, she murmured. They entered the compound through a gap in the fence. Rusted hangars loomed like ghosts. The wind sang low through the steel ribs. Inside one of the warehouses, they found what looked like an old comms unit, half cracked, covered in sand. Maya tested it. Dead. Then faintly, through the static. Petty Officer Chun, if you can hear this. She froze. The voice. Reeves. I know what you did. The data's out. You've made your point, but it's not too late. The truth can still be managed. We can make this right. Mitchell's jaw clenched. He's here. Maya adjusted the dial. Say that again, Commander. There was a pause. Then calm as ever. Coordinates 32 degrees N, 65 degrees E. You're already walking toward me. Let's finish this face to face. The transmission cut. Harrison looked terrified. It's a trap. Maya nodded. Of course it is. Then why go? Mitchell asked. Because he's right, she said softly. It's time to finish it. The meeting point was less than a mile ahead. An old landing pad, cracked and faded, the paint barely visible under layers of sand. When they reached it, a single transport chopper was waiting. Civilian markings, no insignia. Reeves stood beside it, alone. No guards, no weapons in sight. Just that same detached composure, the kind that made everything he said sound logical, even when it was. Maya signaled Mitchell and Harrison to hold position behind cover. Then she stepped forward, her rifle low but ready. Commander, she said. Petty Officer. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind carried the faint rattle of the chopper's blades idling. Reeves looked older, not by years, by weight, the kind that sat in the eyes. "You made quite a mess," he said finally. "Half the network's down. Civilian news intercepts are already picking up fragments of the transmission." "Good," Maya said. He sighed. "You don't understand the damage you've done. You think exposure fixes things. It doesn't. It weakens defense credibility, undermines years of classified progress. You just handed our enemies the blueprint to our next generation of intelligence warfare." She didn't blink. "I handed the truth to the people who deserve it." He tilted his head. "Idealism, always your flaw." "No," she said quietly, "my flaw was trusting you." For the first time his composure cracked just a fraction. "You think this is betrayal? It's evolution. You of all people should appreciate efficiency. Machines don't panic, they don't question, they don't hesitate." "And they don't care," she said. He took a slow step forward. "Care gets people killed." "Maybe," she said, "but so does obedience." His jaw flexed. "You still think this was personal? It was. You were chosen because you're exceptional, because your instincts, your morality make you unpredictable. We needed that. The system learns from extremes." Maya's voice was steady. "Then learn this." She raised the rifle and fired not at him but at the chopper's fuselage. The round hit the fuel line. Sparks flared, smoke rising. The engine sputtered, whined, and died. Reeves stared at the smoke curling above them. "You just stranded yourself in the desert." She stepped closer, eyes locked on his. "No, I just made sure you couldn't run." The silence stretched. Then Reeves did something she didn't expect. He smiled. "You really think this changes anything?" he asked softly. "The data's already backed up. You think one transmission matters. The system will adapt. It always does." "Then maybe it's time people learn to adapt too," Maya said. Reeves' smile faded. "You're not a hero, Chun. You're a disruption." "I'm fine with that." He looked away, almost wistful. "You won't make it far. They'll discredit you. Call it psychological breakdown, field trauma. No one will listen." She stepped close enough that he could see the dust on her skin, the burn of sleepless eyes. "Someone will, because truth has a way of outliving orders." For a long time he said nothing. Then he simply nodded, as though accepting something he couldn't stop. "Then I hope," he said quietly, "that the world you think you're saving still wants saving." Maya's voice was softer now. "The world's not perfect, Commander, but it still deserves better than this." Reeves looked at her, and for just a second the mask dropped. Regret flickered behind his eyes. Maybe he hadn't started out a villain. Maybe he just lost his compass somewhere along the way. He turned toward the horizon, the sun climbing behind him. "You know," he said, "the irony is that your data, your choices, will still feed the system. You can't delete yourself from it." "Maybe not," she said, "but I can make sure it remembers what it tried to forget." She lowered her rifle. "Goodbye, Commander." He didn't answer. He just watched her walk away. When she reached the ridge, Mitchell and Harrison were waiting. "Is it done?" Harrison asked. "Yeah," Maya said quietly, "it's done." Mitchell looked back at Reeves, a lone figure against the wind, the wrecked chopper smoking behind him. "What now?" Maya adjusted her pack, glancing toward the north. "Now we walk." "Where?" "Anywhere they can't erase us." Hours later, the chopper wreck was a distant smudge behind them. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, cruel, beautiful, unbroken. They walked in silence until Harrison finally spoke. "You think the world will believe us?" Maya didn't answer right away. The sky was turning amber again, shadows lengthening across the sand. "Maybe not at first," she said finally, "but the truth's out there now. It'll move, it'll spread. People will start asking questions, that's all it takes." Mitchell smiled faintly. "And if they come after us?" "Then they'll have to catch us first." For a moment, the three of them just stood there, small figures against an ocean of light and dust, broken but alive. Maya looked toward the horizon. Somewhere beyond it lay consequence, investigation, exposure, maybe even redemption. But right here, in this moment, there was only the wind, and the sound of their footsteps carrying the last of what was human across a landscape built to erase it. That night, Maya sat alone by the faint glow of a fire. The stars were endless again, the kind of endless that humbles and heals at once. She thought of Webb, of Davies, of every name that would never be written into the report. She thought of Reeves, and how, in another world, maybe he'd been right about one thing. The system would adapt. But maybe, she hoped, it would adapt to them, to the ones who still cared. She looked down at her rifle, dusted, scratched, reliable, and whispered softly, "We're still here." Then she closed her eyes, feeling the desert wind brush against her face, carrying away the last echoes of gunfire and lies. And somewhere in 1,000 corners of the world, data packets pulsed, alive, unstoppable, carrying the truth she'd risked everything for. It wasn't glory, it wasn't victory. It was something quieter, purer. And when the final words left her lips, they were barely louder than a breath. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.